Hello and welcome to another live windsurf coaching with me, Graham Ezzy. I want to know, did you sail this week? If so, how was it? Where were you? What size were you on? What were you working on? I didn't windsurf this week. I am in Hamburg and just getting over jet lag, not windsurfing this week. Though, if there's a good forecast for Denmark or somewhere nearby, let me know and maybe I can make it. But I just had a full month of windsurfing on Maui. Now I'm in Germany for a few weeks, visiting family, doing some other work. So I'm not trying to get on the water as much as I normally would be. Hey, Dom, Axel. How is everyone doing? Did you sail? What have you been up to? I want to give a shout out to everyone who supports the live coaching through the Patreon. Kåre, Axel, Greg, Sam Williams, John Brouwers, Tomasz Lotocki, Laura, Matthias, Fritz Seemann, Nick Jupp, Samuli, Stijn Harms, Christophe Rouchy, David Brittain, Dom, Denis Derycke, Mario, Gozzetti, Cedric Unholz, Ragnar Lindholm, Matt Gould, Jörg Seeberg, Tomasz Czuba, Jürg Ehrensperger, and Evgeny Nisenboim, and Erik Assum. Thank you guys for supporting this through the Patreon. So in addition to the support, they also get a newsletter, which it's not really a newsletter, but I do articles regularly that are related to windsurfing, related to coaching, travel stories, insights, stuff like that. And yep, you can find all that on the Patreon. Hey, Caro, Jörg had a light wind freestyle session. Sounds good. What were you working on? What kind of light wind freestyle? Caro is maybe going to head up to Kegness. Sounds fun. We had fun there in September. John is enjoying the last few days of the year. You pack up the gear when it gets too cold. I definitely understand that. Max is working on his work-life balance, aren't we all? I'm doing the same. I'm in Germany working on my work-life family balance. Exactly. Hey, Matt. Yeah, Dom is part of the Patreon. I'm reading the articles. Hey, Tomasz. Tomasz had 2 starboard tech sessions. Nice. I want to hear how that felt. Tomasz sails more, I think, on both tacks than most people normally do. So it's not so much of a devil's tack situation. But I want to hear what it's like. Like I always say, the best way to learn, the best way to get better is to sail your bad side. I know a lot of you guys have had experiences like that. I see, Caro, when we were on the master class in Denmark, we had some starboard tech days. Axel and Matt were both on the second week of the masterclass. We did this last September, and they're primarily starboard tack windsurfers, and we had full-on port tack conditions. Pretty tough. But best way to get better. Hey, flip-flop. Hola, ¿cómo estamos? Bart is here. Bart's been sailing in Cornwall. Nice. Is it Epic Cornwall? Should I be looking at plane tickets? I don't know if I can come, but just curious. Jörg has been working on tacks, upwind 360s, heli tack. Those are great moves to work on. Also to include in that is sail 360s. So ducking under the sail like you would for a duck jibe, but then instead of doing a jibe, you just keep going the same direction and you flip the sail another 180. So then you hold it going the normal way. It's another good trick to put in there with the light wind freestyle. Hey, Edwin. Too little wind, too little waves in the Netherlands, but nice that you're able to get on the water. Hey, Greg, 4-2 offshore. Cool. Hard work, but fun. Ragnar's here. Yeah, short days. Ragnar is up in Sweden, and those days must be short. In Germany, they're getting short. Sweden will be shorter. So anyway, Tomasz is answering the question about his devil's tack, and he's saying, doesn't come as naturally as port, but it's coming back. Facebook user, light wind freestyle thing, switching to sail backwinded. Nice. Yeah, that's a great exercise. Lee side riding. Great exercise. I approve. Nice. All right. Now, how are you guys finding the time? So this time, I think for the winter months, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, is a bit easier because days are ending sooner. So I prefer this time. Hopefully it works for everyone else. All right. I'm going to pull up the Facebook group. You guys let me know about the time. Let me pull up the Facebook group. All right. Facebook group is coming up. All right, it was Eric on Facebook. I'm sorry, Eric. I don't know why sometimes it doesn't show your name. All right. Getting this loaded up. All right. Share. Sometimes they change these things around a little bit, and it always takes me a second to figure out the new configuration. Hey, Rich. Share screen. There we go. All right. So let's jump into it. If you guys are curious about the Patreon, this is what it looks like. Well, this is the back end, so I guess it doesn't look like this for everyone. But got these different articles. Here's one I did about Cape Verde, jet lag, about setting goals. This one is something that was pretty near to my heart. Different continuation on the discussion from the Facebook topics from September. Here's an interview with Brad Gerlach looking at an uncut session. This is just like half an hour of windsurfing, or just uncut. Anyway, those are the kind of things in the Patreon. Let's jump into the coaching. All right, first up, we've got a post from Edwin about boards. He says, can anyone compare the impact of a poorly landed forward versus a backloop attempt on both board and rider? I recently broke my big board landing it flat once again with what I call my just do it loop, which is somewhere between a forward and a cheese roll. Years ago, I stopped doing tabletops because I had the bad habit of landing those flat. Now I decided not to do my just do it forwards anymore with my brand new board, but I do want to continue my backloop journey. Any words of wisdom, experience on the risk of breaking a board doing backloops versus forwards? I think it depends. There's certain kinds of backloops that can be hard on boards. In general, backloops are not as hard on boards as forward loops. But if you have the right technique on the forwards, they're also not hard on the boards normally. Tabletops, I think, can be particularly bad for boards. So Edwin, I think that is definitely not, what am I trying to say? It's not that it's normal, but it's not unheard of, your experience with the tabletops, because the landings can be very, very hard with tabletops. Hey, Christophe. Nice session on Weddell. But in terms of, I'm curious with the chat, for you guys who are doing forward loops and back loops, have you broken boards before with hard landings? I think with the forwards, if you're getting the rotation kind of horizontal or cheese rolly, where then you get a bit of float from the sail at the end of the jump, you're not going to be landing too hard. Edwin, when you say you're just do it forward, is that the normal forward that you do, the forwards that I'm used to seeing you do? Because those forwards look quite nice. The landings, as I've seen them, don't look very hard. So I wonder if is it that kind of rotation or is it something different? I think with the back loops, if you're really focusing on under rotating and working to learn the back loop from an under rotated entryway rather than rotating too much, you're not going to have a very hard landing. The other thing is with back loops is because you're landing on the rail and on the nose, the landings are often pretty soft, or even on your body. Like with the back loop, you can land sort of on your thigh. Whereas with the forwards, where you're landing flat with the board and on the tail, you can get a pretty hard landing. Yeah, Christophe is saying he's also had some hard landings on the tabletop. But with the forward loops, it's mainly slapping his back. Yeah, tabletops are underrated for how hard the landings can be. They are one of the big board breaker moves, tabletops, because you come down really weightless and weird. I think tabletops, double forwards, push loops can be hard on boards. I haven't broken a board in a long time. I'm trying to think the last boards that I've broken from jumping. It's tough also with the boards in terms of what breaks them or not. I don't know. It can be something just weird in how the board was made, and you land a little bit weird. I mean, there's so many forces going on. I haven't broken a board in half in, I don't know, it's been over 10 years for sure. How did it break, Edwin? You get they break in half, you get the little, whatever you call that, crack. Hey, Olivia. Hello. So how did it break? I'm curious. In the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, the way that boards have broken for me is either pulling out the inserts or going soft on the mass track from hard landings. And then so it's soft around the mass track, so then you can really press down on the deck of the board, and then it delams, and then you can have problems with the skin on the mass track, and then you get water in there. Dum Dum is saying that he never broke any boards jumping, but his worst crashes were on back loops. But once you have good technique, then forwards must be worse than back loops. But how do you get good technique? Well, Dum Dum, your technique is pretty good. All right. Eric, I says Eric still is saying, do Dakine straps have a system to get straps narrower from 14.5 to 14 or less? You have narrow feet. This is a good question about the foot straps. You want to do it with washers. So you want big washers. If you have a production board, I don't have a foot strap with me, but the way the washers normally are, the little plastic washers, they're asymmetric. You can just turn it 180 degrees and you can make it tighter. You can definitely shrink half centimeter. I think you can shrink more than a half centimeter if you do both of them for your foot strap width. So yeah, check the washers. So you want to do that with the washers. If you don't have one of those asymmetric washers that came with the board, you can buy stainless steel washers. There's some old posts in the group with links to different stainless steel washers that you can buy. And then just the bigger the washer, the tighter it's going to be on your foot. So Edwin is saying that the board has cracks on the bottom of the rail. Used a couple of years, but still sad. Yeah, that's difficult. That's difficult. Sorry to hear that. Axel says never broke a board, but they get soft deck after a couple of years. Yeah. So it's not going to be on. So it's not going to come with the Dakine foot strap. So the foot strap that Dakine sells is just the foot strap. There's no washers. I mean, it depends what foot strap you're talking about. Some of them do have adjustment. I assume you're talking about the Primo, which is the most common Dakine foot strap. It's what I use. And they don't come with any washers. But you want to use the washers that came with your board. And so if you have a production board, it came with foot straps and washers. If you don't have those for whatever reason, like if you bought the board secondhand and it didn't come with foot straps and washers, then you need to buy washers separately. And you need to use washers. You can't use you shouldn't use the Dakine foot strap or any foot strap without washers because the screw will pull through the foot strap. So you need to have some kind of washer there, and you want to make sure it's stainless steel. I wouldn't use nickel. I wouldn't use galvanized. You want to use stainless steel, That'll be strong. It won't rust. All right, Ragnar's saying that he broke a board years ago, down to the laminate after hundreds of crashes. Yeah. Yeah, this is a good point from Tomasz, is you can also change the holes on the board. So instead of going like with the holes that, right, because you have like whatever 3 and 3 or 4 and 4 or whatever it is. So instead of going like, for example, with like this one and why is this so hard to figure out? This is like looking in a mirror. Anyway, you can just go a hole tighter on the foot straps. Christophe is saying broke a slalom board landing a jump on top of a chop. Yeah, it's tough with the forces and what causes it to break, what doesn't. All right, let's get back to it. I think that you want to work on having good technique with your back loops and work on under rotating them. All right. Next up, we've got this post from Dom Dom. So Dom Dom is in the Accelerator Club, which is the highest tier on the Patreon, and we have a private WhatsApp group. There's just a few people in it at the moment, and we do Zooms, and we talk about, it's like kind of like this coaching, but a bit more personal and one-on-one. And at the moment, we just have a few people in it, so it's pretty personal. Anyway, so we had our Zoom last night, and Dom Dom was going through a lot of footage from his back loops, and I asked him to post this one because I think it's a really good example of something that I've talked about before on the live stream, which is that to land back loops, you really have to want to land them. You really have to muscle it. And so we've been working on the back loop technique for a while now, Dom Dom and I, through the coaching. And we've got, there's a lot of key aspects that I see here. Taking off upwind. So you can see going upwind on the takeoff, taking off quite steep, going straight up at the apex, looking over the shoulder to spot the landing, and at the same time pushing the sail forward, that windshield wiper motion with the arms, spotting the landing, windshield wiper with the arms, sheeting in, staying tucked up. Great, great, great. This is a great example of that technique. But then what I love to see is the landing is not super pretty. He gets wet, head goes underwater, the board is facing into the beach, but manages to hold on and muscle it around. And a lot of landing back loops is just about muscling this landing. You get most of it right. You kind of land in a position where you're mostly right. And you don't want to over rotate. You're really aiming to under rotate. You can see how little Dom Dom is actually rotating, and then coming in on the nose and then just holding it for this second, just muscling it, and then turning it around in the water to get going again. So I really like that example. Really shows how you kind of muscle the end of the move oftentimes. So thank you for posting that, Dom Dom. All right, next up, we've got another back loop. This is from Chris. It says, any tips for improving on this back loop attempt? He was on a 5.3 and a 93 liter board. It wasn't very high, but should be enough to get around. I feel that the first part was okay, but at the end I can see that I'm sheeting in the sail and turning with the board rather than bringing the sail across my body to the point where I want to land. Any help would be great. Thanks. All right, let's watch this. Yeah, let's make this big. So the first thing that I see is the underhand grip. And underhand grip can work for back loops. I used to do my back loops with an underhand grip, but most other jumps, you want to have an overhand grip. And in general, I think you have more control with an overhand grip. So I recommend doing everything with an overhand grip so you're not changing it around. But back loops are one move that you can do with an underhand grip. Is it ideal? I'd say no. Is it possible? Yes. All right, so let's go through this. So it's hard to see the angle that you're taking off here, but it looks like you could take off a little bit more upwind, which will help you get around because you're not getting around enough. And again, it's hard to see exactly. So I'm just looking at your wake, and your wake looks fairly straight, and you want to carve, or you don't really want to be carving off the ramp, but you want to be, so carving is probably the wrong word, but you want to turn upwind so that you're taking off really, really up into the wind, more into the wind than you think. And one of the exercises for that is just finding the limit point. So taking up more and more and more up into the wind until you can't anymore. And then that's the point that you realize, okay, that's the limit. I have to dial it back from there. Tomasz is in the chat, and Dom as well. And they've been working on their back loops for years and landing them. They've gotten to the point now where they're taking off consistently upwind enough. So I want to hear from Dom and Tomasz, what helps you find the point that was upwind enough on the takeoff? Because I think that's one of the main things here. And there's a few things going on when you take off more upwind. One, there's just less to rotate because you've done some of the rotation on the water, right? The back loop is a upwind move. So if you take off more upwind, there's less to do. Two, you're taking off into the wind. And so then you have less, you need less force to push through the eye of the wind. Because if you really take off into the wind, you can kind of just fall down on the other side. But the more downwind you are, the more you really have to force that rotation. And the back loop is not a rotation you want to force. It's a rotation you want to finesse. Finesse, not force. Finesse, not force. And so if you're having to force it just to initiate the rotation, chances are you're not going to be able to control it, and you'll either under rotate or over rotate or whatever it is, but it won't be a very good rotation. So you want to take off very much into the wind. So more upwind, Chris, is what I'm trying to say. All right, I see two more things. The first thing is I want to see more action with your head. So here is good. You're looking over the shoulder, right? But then at this point, you start looking at your hands, and I want you to kind of keep looking all the way through. And a lot of times that looking at the very end is responsible for that last little section of the rotation, which determines whether you make the move or not. And the third thing, maybe the most important thing, I'm not sure, taking off upwind is also very important, is I want to see more action with your arms this way. So I want to see you start the rotation with your arms more back. So the windshield wiper is back. And then once you're at the apex and coming down, then the windshield wiper goes forward. And you know, you're getting good sheeting in, pushing on that front arm, but that motion of transition is important for the rotation. So I want to see you start with the sail more back, and then once you're at the apex, you're pushing it more forward. And that will also help you get more rotation, because when you're taking off with the sail back, that helps steer you up into the eye of the wind. And then actually what you're doing when you're sheeting in and pushing the sail forward is slowing down the rotation and stopping the rotation, which is what you want to be doing on the way down. But on the way up, you want to help the rotation. Does that make sense? Let's look at the comments. So Dom is saying that too much upwind is the point where he's losing speed. Tomasz is saying if he goes too much on the wind, then it just depends on how strong the wind is and the height he can get. It's a lot easier onshore than offshore. Yeah, that might make sense. All right, let's see what other people are saying in the Facebook group comments. We got a lot of comments, 21 comments. All right, so yeah, Tomasz mentions an overhand grip. Marius as well mentions an overhand grip. Straighten out the front leg. Yeah, so you got some things to work on. Sounds good. All right. It sounds like you guys are not interested in transcripts of the live streams. All good. Moving on. Juso is asking if anyone is in Pozo during November. Are you there? Who else is there? It sounds like Jörg is going to be there. Jan Thomas is going to be there. If it's a good forecast, let me know. Maybe there's some flights from Hamburg and I can come for a few days. I wouldn't mind a little Pozo action. All right, next up, Alberto, bottom turn and cutback. In this cutback, I felt it was good because I was able to rotate my shoulders well during the rotation, and also for the bottom turn, I was able to pick up speed. In your opinion, could be there's something to improve. So I want you guys to add hashtags to posts. You just, when you're making your posts, just do hashtag cutback, and then I don't have to do that after the fact. All right, let's watch the video. Let's make it big. All right, there's a lot of force. You're using a lot of force in your body. Alberto. Looked like you liked that one. I can tell from the body language. A lot of force, getting some spray. So there are different kinds of cutbacks. There's a video that needs to be done. Where are my post-it notes? It seems like a simple video, but actually it's kind of complicated. So I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I should do it, which is just breaking down all the different kinds of cutbacks, because there are a lot of different kinds of cutbacks. Cutback video. And the kind of cutback that we're normally, or that I'm normally teaching to, is a carving cutback. This is not that. This is more of like a kind of a snappy slash sort of thing, where you're really using a lot of your body and the board is pretty flat and you're forcing it around with your body. This is cool, and if it feels good, do it. But this is not the kind of cutback that I would teach. Let me phrase that differently. There's a different kind of cutback that I would like you to try, which uses more energy from the wave rather than energy from your body in order to make the turn. And I want the board to be more on the rail rather than flat. And so your initiation can be pretty similar to this, but then instead of tweaking out your body and pushing, I mean, it's not bad. I'm not trying to be too critical. And, you know, I've seen cutbacks like this from some of the best windsurfers in the world. Josh Angulo sometimes does cutbacks like this. It's definitely a style of cutback. It's not bad. So what I'm saying is I want you to think about another kind of cutback in addition to this, where you're using more the power of the wave and you're using your rails more. And so instead of like jamming your body out and trying to force the board, instead you're getting more bend in your knees, getting on those heels, and really trying to feel the power of the wave connect with the bottom of the board and feeling that board carve through the cutback. It feels amazing. Doing carving cutbacks feels amazing. It looks good. And Alberto, it's something that will really help add to your repertoire, add to this kind of sort of forceful slashy cutback. I don't know if you're in the chat, but do you know what I mean? If you are, I want to make sure that's clear. Again, I need to do the video that's like a taxonomy of cutbacks, because in windsurfing, even more than surfing, because we have the sail to help us, there are so many hundreds of different kinds of cutbacks. So I'd like you to try more of a carving cutback, really getting a little bit more bend in the knees, really sinking your body down, hanging from the boom, and trying to carve on the board. and then try and really accelerate out of the turn. Really accelerate out of it. I think that'll be nice homework for you. Just talked about this on the live coaching. I'll comment on this later. But Alberto, hopefully you can watch this rather than just looking at the comments. All right, Axel Volmer is new to the group. Welcome. All right, did we talk about this last week? Advice for sailing upwind. I think we did talk about this, but let's revisit this because sailing upwind is so important, especially in wave sailing. One of the best ways to work on staying upwind is having a good fast tack. Second is making sure that you're on big enough gear, big enough fins, big enough boards and sails to make sure that you're really planing around. 3 is making sure that you're comfortable sailing out of the strap. Sometimes sailing out of that back strap or even out of both straps is necessary to get more upwind. 4 is really twisting your upper body into the wind to help sail more upwind. And then really looking way more upwind than you actually want to go. Really you can use the chop and the waves to help push you upwind. You can do multiple tacks on the outside. So you don't want to always come in. So sometimes if you're just trying to get ground, stay outside of where the waves are breaking, because sometimes inside of the waves, there's a lot of current. And then if you're coming all the way in and going all the way out, that can be impossible to come upwind. Or in some places, you don't even want to go too far out because there's current or swell on the outside that's pushing you downwind. And so you have to be really aware of what the ocean is doing. And so if your goal is to get more upwind, sometimes you don't want to go too far out. Sometimes you don't want to come too far in. And so you want to be aware of that. It's going to be different depending on your location. But being aware of the ocean is very important for everything, but especially staying upwind. All right, what else are people saying about it? Because this is some discussion after the live stream. Yeah, Oguz is saying getting out of the straps. Exactly. Jeff loves this topic. He talks about schlogging, technique for schlogging, which is a great technique to learn. That's like out of the straps, not planing, sailing back and forth, which is how sometimes the best wave sailing sessions are, because for down the line wave sailing, you don't want to have a lot of wind. And if you're fully powered going out, you'll have way too much power on the wave and won't be able to ride them very well. So yeah, great short runs, staying close to the action zone. Yeah, these are great answers. Really raking the sail back when you're sailing. Yep. Cool. Thank you everyone for contributing to this. Yeah, and then if you have video to post, we'd love to see it. Hey, Jeff. Yeah, so Jeff, this is our new time. Oh yeah, you figured it out. We're not at 9 o'clock yet. Good to have you here. Facebook user was sailing Lake Como, was windy yesterday, 22 knots. Jeff, are you back on the water? Are you feeling fit and healthy and ready to sail? Jeff unfortunately had some injuries. Yeah, I'm curious. All this talk of Pozo now, I want to see what the Pozo forecast is. I'm going to load up Wind Guru. All right, so this is Maui. Maui is perfect, like always, but I'm not on Maui, unfortunately. So let's check Pozo. Pozo looks, yeah, this could work for Pozo. There's not much swell, but this wind will be good. And that's the end of the forecast window. So there's some swell. This swell won't really make it into Pozo. It's too west. this is pretty flat, but these should be fine days. Saturday, Sunday, Monday should be fine in Pozo. So if you're in Pozo, have fun. That's not enough for me to book a flight. But if you guys see something that looks epic, let me know. All right, guys, I think we're all caught up. It's a little bit slower this week because I guess it's cold, it's dark earlier, days are shorter. People are not able to get on the water as much. Oh, it was Nicola on Lake Como. Nice. But I'm, of course, going to keep doing the live coaching. If you guys have requests, I'm pretty busy this next couple of weeks, but then after that, I could start going through some of my old footage and putting together some other clips and stuff. As well, I'm constantly posting stuff in the Patreon. So if you want to support the channel, that's the best way to do so right now. It's just patreon.com/GrahamEzzy. And thank you everyone who is supporting it. And I post regularly there, trying to be more and more regular as well. All right, Tantric Surfer in the chat is saying, can we recap the right sequence to fast tack? I get confused by the order of feet, hand on the mast, get off the harness, etc. Yeah, so this, I'll go through this kind of briefly. For the really in-depth look at the tack, I did a masterclass on tacking in the spring. A lot of you guys were actually on that course. Jeff was on it. Yeah, a lot of you guys were on the fast tack masterclass. I'm going to cut that up and make it available asynchronously as well. So that will be available. And that is really a deep dive into the tack, breaking it down into really micro steps with exercises and stuff. Anyway, recap the right sequence to fast tack. By the way, hi, John in the tack. Can I do my wave moves on both, or JD Windsurfing? Sorry, is that John? Maybe it's not. Maybe I spoke too soon. Hey, JD Windsurfing. Jumping and moves on the wave. Yes, I can do all the moves on both tacks. Mostly. Some of the moves not. Double forwards, I'm not as comfortable on, or I'm not really comfortable on in port tack. I can do them starboard tack, fine. And then some moves I have different comfort levels, but generally I can do everything on both sides, but not the same comfort. Some things I'm more comfortable port tack, other things I'm more comfortable the other way around, JD Windsurfing. All right, so back to Tantric Surfer's question. So you want to, so I recommend hand on the mast. So that's the way I like to do the tack. Hand on the mast, out of the foot straps, then out of the harness is I think how I'd recommend it off the cuff. But you guys who are doing fast tacks, and especially you guys who are in the fast tack masterclass, what do you recommend for the sequence? What do you do with your feet, hand on the mast, in and out of the harness? What is your order of operation there? If you guys are still with us in the chat. But I think you want to stay in the harness as long as you can, because that provides you a lot of stability. And so then, because if you're out of the harness and then trying to move your hands, get out of the foot straps, all that stuff, it can be difficult, because then you're having to control the power of the sail and everything. But I think I like grab the mast, come out of the straps, unhook, pull the sail back, go around the front, get to the new side, stabilize, get going. So that's my basic sequence. Again, I'm going to cut up the masterclass, post it so it's available online, because that is really a deep dive into the tack. So if that's something that you're interested in, that will be available. And then, yeah, if any of you guys who are on the course want to talk about your tack, we're all ears. And then otherwise, what I was saying before I started talking about the tacks is, if you guys have requests, I don't have time to do them over the next couple weeks, but I can start thinking about them. So like, okay, this cutback video, doing a anatomy of cutbacks is one thing. And yeah, I'll start. Sorry, I just saw there's a comment showing up that I don't see. Ragnar's saying, on the way into the tack, you put your back foot more on the rail to push upwind. Yes, I do. And then I hook the front foot around the mast to make it easier to get around. All right, Facebook user is saying, for me, one thing which is important is to keep the front arm quite tight, not folded, to keep the wind. It is much easier, and after also put the rig very at the back, and after the change of side, putting the sail in the front. Yeah, I like to do with the front arm straight, actually. I don't know if that's what you mean, but I really like to keep that front arm straight, sail back, and then the sail comes across the body, grab the new side, push it away, stabilize. GAD is windsurfing's asking if I can do some freestyle moves like ducking and stuff. So I assume you're not asking if I can actually do them, which yes, I can. But if I can do a tutorial for them, yes. So I'm going to do a Vulcan / air jibe masterclass. Then otherwise I have some video clips that I took when I was in Zilt with some of the top freestylers in the world about their advice for different things. I posted one about Vulcans. Next up, I've got one about ducking. I've got to look at the footage to see what the other ones are. I asked a bunch of questions, so I'm going to post that on this YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel so that you get that notification when I post it. Yeah, ducking tutorial would be awesome, especially on waveboards. Yeah, I'm not an expert ducker. I mean, the freestyle that I do is wave related, right? So I like to do flockas and goiters and paunches and spocks sometimes and grubbies and stuff like that. The ducking stuff, I've done enough of that to land those moves, but it's not something I'm an expert in. I think it can be pretty hard on a waveboard to do like a freestyle switch stance duck, because one of the reasons that the freestylers are able to do that is they've got these really stable boards, and so they're able to sail switch and they don't have to worry about the stability of a board, whereas a wave board is so much more tippy than the freestyle board. So it's pretty tough to do on a wave board. Not impossible, but pretty tough. Freestyle board for the duck moves is definitely a lot easier. I'd say for the other moves, flockas, spocks, air jibes, all of that stuff, you can do it on a waveboard. And I learned most of those moves on a waveboard. It might not be ideal, but it's also not bad, especially if you are more of a wave sailor, because then you want to be able to do those tricks on your waveboard. You don't want to be only able to do them on your freestyle board, right? So I think it's not bad for wave sailors who want to learn freestyle to do it on a waveboard, not just on a dedicated freestyle board. If you're super focused on the freestyle, yeah, do it on a dedicated freestyle board. But it's not bad to learn on a waveboard at all, because it teaches you a few different things, and there are differences in doing the tricks. Like doing the moves on a freestyle board versus a waveboard is slightly different. And if ultimately you're going to spend 99% of your time windsurfing on a waveboard, you want to be able to do those tricks on a waveboard, right? So learn them from the beginning on a waveboard, and then you can do your spocks on any wavy day. Like I see it's quite common actually, and nothing against you if this is you, but I see a lot of wave sailors who are good wave sailors and who also practice freestyle on a freestyle board, but then they can't do their freestyle moves on their waveboard. So they can do the spocks and flockas and stuff, but only on a freestyle board. And if you spend 90% of your time on your waveboard, don't you want to be able to do your freestyle tricks on that board as well? So I think putting the work in on a waveboard, learning the freestyle tricks is totally worth it. So someone's asking for flocka instruction. Flockas are very difficult, but I want to do a flocka instruction. I think when I do it, I'm not going to do it alone. I want to do it with another coach, and also maybe with Tomasz, who I don't know if he's still in the chat, but he keeps telling me that he has this like secret method for teaching the flocka, and it's the best method ever. I've yet to see it. Learning flockas for me was pretty hard. It took me a full summer of trying them every single day. Every single day. The trick I thought to flockas when I was learning them was really going way downwind and realizing that the move is a move where you're traveling downwind. You're not traveling upwind. So the rotation is upwind, but the momentum of your unit is traveling downwind. And so I don't know if I'll be able to give a demonstration here, but you're traveling downwind, but spinning upwind instead of traveling upwind and spinning upwind. And that mental realization is really important. And so you really want to carve way, way, way downwind, and you have all that momentum going downwind, sheet in really hard at the beginning. And then when you pop up, it's like this twist with your hips and your body where you're kind of doing a 180 and you're staying on top of all of the gear and really sheeting in the sail and pushing it forward to land on the nose, but really staying over everything and still traveling downwind, not trying to travel upwind. Yeah, shortboard, JD, helps a lot for the flocka, for sure, because you can bury the nose. So I think the flocka is one of the moves where, depending on your technique, a freestyle board can actually be more difficult if you're trying to learn it. If you have one of those like big nose freestyle boards, kind of longer freestyle board. I guess freestyle boards have changed since I was a kid with a freestyle board. They've gotten a lot shorter. Like when I was a kid, freestyle boards were not super short. I still have a pretty cool freestyle board that I don't know what to do with. It's like an 85-liter Quattro freestyle board. It was one of Cali's boards. I think he even won a World Cup on it, Fuerte or something. And then he gave it to me, and I sailed it a lot in Maui. And then I haven't sailed it in, I don't know, long time, 10 years, 15 years. I don't know what to do with it. If someone is looking for an 85-liter freestyle board, but it's super short. It's kind of a, yeah, I don't know how the shape compares to the current boards. It's pretty cool. If someone is looking for a board like that, let me know. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for supporting the channel. I'll see you in the Facebook group. If you guys have any questions, photos, videos, you know what to do. Post it in the group. I'll see you next week, Sunday at this time. I hope you can get on the water. If not, I hope you have fun doing whatever you're doing and are not missing windsurfing too much. There's some great videos on YouTube. I'll post some. And if you're looking for windsurfing content to read during the week, sign up for the Patreon. There's a lot of content that I've posted so far, and there's more coming. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. Take care. Thanks for showing up. I'll see you next week, Sunday. Bye.